So I need us to be able to practice on the interquartile range. So IQR, that's basically what it means. Interquartile range is basically quarter 3 minus quarter 1. So I need to get my 5-number summary, and I'll be able to subtract quarter 3 minus quarter 1. I can give you a list. One thing here is that I can give you a list, like I gave you here number 13, and I can just ask you, all right, write your numbers from smallest to largest. So I'm gonna go 168, 172, 173, 173, 175, 175, 177, 182, and 184. I list the numbers from small to large. There's 9 numbers, right? I counted how many numbers there are. There's 9 numbers. 9 is an odd number. So my median, the number in the middle, is one of these numbers. Now let me find the number in the middle. That's right here. Some people call this median. Some people call this quarter 2. Now to the left of that, there's 4 numbers. 4 is an even number. So I'm gonna find the middle of that. So my focus is right here, those 4 numbers. Now let me draw a line right in the middle. In this case, happens to be in between 2 numbers because I have an even amount of numbers, and I'm gonna call this quarter 1. To the right of my median, I'm looking at my focus is on these 4 numbers. Right, 4 is an even number. There's 4 numbers, is an even number. So the middle of that is just a line in between 2 numbers. So I'm gonna say it here. This is my quarter 3. Now, let me go from here. Let me get my 5-point summary, right? We call this the 5-number summary. I'm gonna find my maximum, right? Given a list, I can find my maximum, the first quartile, the median. Some people call this quarter 2. I can find my third quartile, and I can find my maximum. Oops. Okay, let me erase down here. It's not maximum, it's minimum. The first numbers are minimum. So minimum, first quartile, my median, or quarter 2, like people call it, my third quartile, quarter 3, or my maximum. My median is my minimum is my smallest number. So let me come back to it. My minimum is 168. Now I can tell that quarter 1, my first quartile, is in between 172 and 173. So I'm gonna call this 172.5. It's okay to deal with decimals. Now, if you don't know that in between 172 and 173 is a decimal, one thing you could have done is add those 2 numbers, 172 plus 173, and then divide it by 2. Okay, so if you cannot tell, add the 2 numbers and then divide it by 2. Now my quarter 2, or my median, I can tell is 175. My quarter 3 is a number in between 177 and 182. If you already know which the number right in between it, right between 177 and 182, and then you already know. If you cannot tell, add those 2 numbers, 177 plus 182, and then divide it by 2. My case, I happen to get 179.5. And then my maximum is 184. My biggest number, 184. So if I give you a list, you can easily find it. Now, but here, my instructions are find the interquartile range, quarter 3 minus quarter 1. I'm gonna come back to answer that in a minute. Now, I wanna focus on right here, it is how you're gonna get your information. You can get a list, boom, you can find your 5-number summary, or I might have given it to you like this. I might have given it to you as a box and whisker. Sometimes I don't give you the list. I just give you this information. Let me call this 172, and there's 173. Right here, you will see 175, and let's say this other number is in between 179 and 180, and this other number here is 184. So I could have given you a list. You can easily find a 5-point summary, or I can give you the box and whisker. You can read this. You see the minimum value is 168. Quarter one is in between 172 and 173. So it's 172.5. Quarter two or median, we can see it's 175. Quarter three or third quartile, we can see is in between 179 and 180. My numbers here don't help. You'll be able to see it better in the homework. So you can tell the third quartile is 179.5, and then your maximum is 184. Again, the information is going to be given to you as a list or as a box and whisker. You're going to get both. Now, the interquartile range, which is what I'm asking here. Let me answer this in blue so we don't get confused. Interquartile range is quarter three minus quarter one. So in my case, I'm going to go 179.5 minus 172.5. Quarter three minus quarter one. Use a calculator if you need to. My answer here is 7. Just want to make sure that you know that you can be given the information as a list or as a box and whisker. I want you to be able to read both. All right, let's take a look at number 74. I could give you the information as a list. As a list, remember, you're going to put the numbers in order. So 12, 14, 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18, 22, and 22. All right, there's 10 numbers. So I'm going to cut this in the middle. It's an even number, right? 10 is even. So my line is going to go in between two numbers. So the middle happens to be right here. We call this quarter two or median. Now to the left of it, there's 5 numbers, right? 5 is odd. So let me cut those in the middle. So that happens to be a number. And then to the right of my median, there's 5 numbers, and the one in the middle happens to be quarter three. We can tell that the maximum is 12. We can tell the maximum is 22, the minimum is 12. We can see the first quartile, the second quartile, the third quartile. Or another way I can give this, like if I give you a list, you can get your 5-number summary. But another way I could have given you this information, let me write this as in black. Let me do a number line here instead. Let me start with my number line. I could have just said, okay, we're going to see there's a 12, there's a 15, there's also a 16. Let me say this is 17. Let me identify 18. And let me identify 22, right? There might be some other numbers, but I want us to identify those numbers. And then I'm going to say this smallest point is going to be on 12. The biggest point is going to be at 22. I'm going to draw a line right here at 15th. I'm going to draw a line right here in between 16 and 17. And I'm going to draw a line right here in 18th. Let me connect this box in the center with whiskers. So you might be given the information as a list or as a box and whisker. The question here is find the interquartile range. Now remember, interquartile range is quarter three minus quarter one. whether you're given the information as a list or as a box and whisker, I'm just gonna go 18 minus 15. Like I said, whether you're reading this as a list or as a box and whisker, you're gonna find out 18 and 15, quarter 3 minus quarter 1, happens to be 3. My interquartile range is 3. Now, one thing that we're gonna start learning is what we call the variance. Variance, some people like to call this sigma square. So let me introduce you guys to symbols. This is the Greek letter sigma, but we call this sigma squared. That's what we're going to call the variance. Okay, so let's do this. This is how we're going to do this. First of all, we're going to find the mean, the average. So let me find the mean of this. We know that for the average or mean, I have to add them all and then divide it by how many we got. I don't want to waste your time, so I'm just going to say the mean in this case is 8. You don't believe me, pause the video, add everything. So 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 8 plus 8.5, right? Add them all up and then divide it by 11 because there's 11 numbers on the list. You're going to find out that it's 8. Their mean is 8. Okay, the mean is very important for the variance. What I'm going to do, I'm going to find the difference between each of these numbers, each number on the list, and the mean, the difference. Okay, so I'm just going to go 7 minus 8. Right, I'm looking at my first number. Notice I went that number minus the mean. And that gives me a -1. Okay. But then, notice how my variance, I called it squared. It looks like sigma squared, right? So in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to find a difference. -1 squared will become +1. Okay, I found the first difference squared. Let me do it of the next one. 7 minus 8, which is the difference -1. Let me square it. It's 1. And then the next one, 7 minus 8 is a -1, but let me square that. I'm going to be able to find a list of the differences squared. All right, my next number is 8, right? I'm going to go 8 minus 8, which is 0, squared. Well, it's still 0. My next number is 8.5. 8.5 minus 8 is 0.5. Let me square that. And that gives me 0.25. Okay, it's okay to deal with decimals. My next one is going to be 9 minus 8. My next number is 9. So 9 minus 8 is 1 squared. Gives me 1. My next number is 8.5. So 8.5 minus 8, that is 0.5 squared. So that gives me 0.25. Then my next number is 9. 9 minus 8 is 1 squared. And then 7. For space purpose, let me go here. 7 minus 8 is -1 squared. My answer is 1. And then 8.5 minus 8 is 0.5 squared is 0.25. And lastly, 8.5 minus 8 is 0.5 squared is 0.25. Okay, so I found that the mean was 8. Okay, the mean was 8. And then I went each of these numbers, I went the number minus the mean. And then whatever I got, I squared this. So this gave me a new list. 1, 1, 1, 0, 0.25, 1, 0.25, 1, 1, 0.25, and 0.25. Right? It gave me a new list. Now, find the average of that list. Okay, so I'm gonna add all my numbers. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 0 plus 0.25 plus 1 plus 0.25 plus 1 plus 1 plus 0.25 plus 0.25. I'm adding my numbers, and I'm gonna divide this by how many numbers there are. According to my calculator, it says 0.636363636363. But now here in my answer, it says round the nth to the nearest tenth. So only one decimal place. So I'm going to round this as 0.6. So find the mean, find the average, and then you're going to find the difference between each numbers and the mean. Square the difference, and then get the average of that list. All right, let's do it again with number 17. If I add all my numbers and divide this by 11, I'm gonna find out that my mean, in this case, happens to be 16.18. Okay, so that's my mean. What I'm going to do next, I'm gonna find the difference between each number and the mean. So 17 minus 16.18. And that gives me 0.82. Square it. And that gives me 0.6724. Okay, so I'm done with that number. Then let me do 13 minus the mean, 16.18. So 13 minus 16.18. My answer is negative 3.18. Square it. And that gives me 10.1124. Okay, I'm done with that number. The next number, 16 minus the mean. So 16 minus 16.18. This gives me a negative 0.18. Let me square that. And that gives me positive 0.0324. On and on. Do them all. Do them all. And then that's going to give you a new list, right? You're going to find some numbers here. I don't want to waste your time, so I did it on my on the side. I did it before I record this video. So you're going to find a list. Find the average of that list. There should be 11 numbers. You add them all, divide it by 11. I did this at the side first before I record the video. I'm going to find that my variance, again, it's sigma squared. My variance is going to be 9.96. But I'm asked to the nearest tenth. This 6 is going to push this 9. But the 9 is at the limit, so that's going to push this other 9. So my answer in this case will be 10. That's my variance. Another thing we're going to start looking at is what we call standard deviation. Now, the symbol for standard deviation, the symbol, the Greek letter that we use is sigma. Variance, let me zoom out a little. The variance, I said the symbol we're going to use is sigma squared. Now, standard deviation, the symbol we're going to use is sigma. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to find, in order for me to find the standard deviation, I'm going to find the variance, and then I'm going to get the square root of that. Because variance is sigma squared. I just want to know sigma. So I'm going to find variance, and then I'll do the square root of that. Okay, so as a reminder, for variance, first of all, I find the mean, right? I have a list of numbers here, and I find out that my mean here is 6.39. Remember, add everything divided by how many you got, so 6.39. I'm gonna subtract each number minus the mean, right? I want to find the difference between each number and the mean. So I'm gonna go 5.75 minus 6.39. I subtract this, and it gives me negative 0.64. Let me square this. Funny thing is once I squared, everything becomes positive. So this becomes 0.4096. Okay, that's the first number. Let me do the next number. 6.75 minus the mean. So 6.75 minus 6.39. It gives me positive 0.36. Let me square that. And that gives me a new number, 0.1296. All right, let me find the next number. 6 minus the mean. So 6 minus 6.39. And that is negative 0.39. Let me square that. And that gives me 0.1521. All right, don't want to waste your time. So it's going to be a bunch of numbers right here, right? Like I said, I'm doing it to each of my numbers. You notice I did it to the first three, but in our homework, we're going to do it to all. There's only 9 numbers on this list, so we can add them all. We can do it to each of them. Now, from those new numbers that I got, let me find the average of that. So I'm going to add them all divided by 9 because there's 9 of them. So I'm going to say my variance, because once I find my variance, that's basically the average of that. My variance, according to my calculator, is 0.487654. So I don't want to waste your time, so I skipped a few steps. That's my variance, but my instructions here are not what's the variance. I'm asking the standard deviation. Okay, so remember for variance, the symbol that I used was sigma squared. Now for standard deviation, the symbol that I'm using is just the symbol sigma. So as the variance, let me get the square root of the variance. And whatever I get, so I get, according to my calculator, I get 0.698323. Let me leave it at that. But my instruction, it says round your answer to the nearest 10th. So 1 decimal place. So I'm going to call this 0.7, right? Because the 9 pushes the 6. So 0.7. Not too bad, right? Let me show you guys one more example here. Number 18. I'm going to find that the mean, because we need to find the mean. I'm just going to say 7.111. Add them all, divided by how many you got. So I found out is 7.111. We're going to subtract each number minus the mean. So I'm going to go 18 minus 7.111. Use a calculator for this, obviously. And I'm going to get 10.889. Square it. The answer, square it. And I get 118.570321. Okay, done with my first number. Let me do my next number. 5 minus the mean. So 5 minus 7.111, according to my calculator, is negative 2.111. And let me square this. And I get 4.456321. Okay, let me do it with my next number. 1 minus the mean. So 1 minus 7.111, and I get is negative 6.111. Let me square this. And it gives me 37.344321. And on, right? I only did it to the first 3 numbers, but obviously we're going to do it to all, because that's giving me a new list. There's my first number, my second number, my third number, and obviously all the numbers that we get. Again, I don't want to waste your time. So once we find all my numbers here on my list, let me find the average of that. So add them all divided by how many you got, and you're gonna find out that the variance, I'm using the Greek letter sigma squared. We're gonna find that my variance in this case happens to be 34.543. My standard deviation, which we use the symbol sigma, my standard deviation is the square root of that. I'm gonna round it to 1 decimal place. So I'm already gonna call this 5.9. That's what we did today.